Welcome to Lab 3, Module 6 and 7 in the Technical Capstone course for the Masters of Legal Studies program at the Cleveland Marshall College of Law. In this lab, we are going to be playing around with some tools that I actually don't use that often. So one of the big tools we're going to be using is Wireshark. I know Wireshark, but it's not something that I use in my day-to-day life. And honestly, I had to look up figure out how to answer each one of these questions myself. So I'm essentially in the same boat as you are. Lots of Googling, a little bit of time on YouTube. I was able to figure it out. We're also going to be playing around with an FTP client. FTP is not something that I use all that often. It's sort of famously has quite a few security issues. It's difficult to configure in a secure way. So it's not something I've used that much. So it's kind of neat to be able to pull down an FTP client and play around with that a little bit. We're going to be doing art poisoning. So we've read a little bit about art poisoning. We've seen some YouTube videos about art poisoning. You're actually going to be doing it now and actually learning how to eavesdrop on a communication between two computers. So really, really neat stuff. This lab's a little bit intimidating, but I promise you it's easier than it seems. But there's a little bit of a drinking from a fire hose element to this lab. So just stay calm, stay patient, have confidence in yourself. You're going to do just fine. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to come into the cyber range, and you're going to open your Windows 7 machine. That is probably going to be labeled like this. It says 10. It's actually Windows 7. You might get prompted when you first open it to say, asking you whether or not you want to activate your Windows license. We're not activating the license here, so you can just say later. You might get some nastygrams from Microsoft about that, but just ignore them. You're going to be just fine, for the purposes of this lab. So then once you get into your Windows machine, it's going to look like this, and you're going to see a folder that says packet captures. This contains the 3 packet captures, sometimes called PCAPs, that we're going to be using for this lab. And these are Wireshark capture files. You don't need to do anything with them. You just click on them and it'll open Wireshark. And so this is what one looks like. All right, so this is the first of those PCAPs. Wireshark is really intimidating when you first see it. These are raw packets captured as they go across the network. There's a lot going on. I think one of the coolest things is, you've read over and over and over again and watched video after video about how SYN, SYN-ACK, ACK works. Well, in Wireshark, you actually can see it. So right here we got SYN. You can see the SYN-ACK come back, and you can see the ACK to establish the connection before you get into exchanging data on the web connection they've established. And I actually think that's pretty cool. You can actually see this, and truthfully, I don't know that SYN, SYN-ACK, ACK ever really made sense to me until I started looking at actual packet captures. But again, I realize this is a little intimidating. And so there are going to be questions you have to answer for each one of these PCAPs, and I'm fully expecting that you're going to have to do quite a bit of independent research to figure out how to answer these questions. And if you get stuck, please come to me, but I do want you to try to figure it out on your own. So there's going to be a little bit of Googling to figure stuff out, probably a little bit of time on YouTube. That's what I had to do to answer some of these questions. And in the end of the day, with Wireshark, because it's so much data, what matters the most is learning how to use these filters up here to drill down on the data you want, and also kind of learning how to play around with the preferences so that the columns show in certain ways to give you the information you want. And so that's really the challenge of these labs, is learning those filters, learning how to apply them to get access to this information in a really efficient way. Again, I fully expect this to feel a little intimidating at first. That's the point of this, right? We're building your confidence with technical issues. I'm also 100% confident that you can do it, and that by the time you get through these questions, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable with Wireshark and looking at raw packet data, which again, even to me, is a little intimidating when you first pop it up. All right, so that's part 1 of the lab. It's definitely the hardest part of the lab. So it doesn't look like it. It looks like some simple questions, whereas this part here, part 2, kind of looks pretty intimidating. There's a lot going on here, but this is definitely the quicker and the easier part of the lab, but there's still some intricacies. And so with the second part of this lab, you're actually going to be setting up art poisoning. So you're going to be launching an art poisoning attack, and you're going to be running Wireshark to eavesdrop on communications between two systems. And so for this one, you're going to be, the first thing you need to do is you need to download a FTP client for your Windows machine. I chose FileZilla. You can find others. FileZilla was pretty easy to use. And so download FileZilla onto your Windows 7 machine or whatever FTP client you choose to work with. And then we're going to return to this, so you can set this aside for a second. And then you need to open up your Kali Linux machine, and we're going to position the Kali Linux machine as, the fake device that sits between your Metasploitable machine and your Windows 7 machine. So you need to make sure that both your Windows 7 and your Metasploitable machine are up and running. And again, this is intimidating because they're commands, and we're just going to script kiddie this. I don't expect you to go out and, understand the intricacies of everything that's happening with this command, though feel free to go look it up if you can. It actually is pretty interesting. But the first command we're going to run is this one, where we're going to turn on packet forwarding. And it's, again, really easy. Just spell it out exactly as it's written. And then we need to set up ARP poisoning. And so that's this command. Again, really pretty easy. It does require you to know your IP addresses for both your Metasploitable machine and your Windows 7 machine. So if you haven't already figured that out, go puzzle out what those IP addresses are. As a hint, Nmap is wonderful at this, at figuring out exactly that questions, but you will need to know what your IP addresses are. And so you're going to have in this terminal window, you're going to set it up with the IP addresses in this order from the instructions. And then in this terminal window, you're just going to flip it. So it's the exact same command. It just flips the IP addresses because we want to see both ends of the conversation. And so on the, for the FTP side, so once you have your FTP client selected and loaded, you can go back to your Windows 7 machine, and all we're going to do is you're going to send a file and a password to log into the Metasploitable machine between those two machines. And then you're going to be able to see that happen on your Kali Linux box. And so you need to go ahead and one thing I did forget. So on the Kali Linux machine, start Wireshark. So you need to go run Wireshark, which you can do with the command open up terminal and just type Wireshark, and it will launch Wireshark. So you need to do that. So in addition to setting up the ARP poisoning, go ahead and start Wireshark. We're just doing this really simple capture up here. This is kind of the standard, so you can start doing that. And anyway, back to the FTP side. So on the FTP side, you are going to connect to the FTP on Metasploitable 2 using port 21, and the login is MSFadmin, and the password is MSFadmin. I actually tried to use the Quick Connect to do that, and I couldn't get Quick Connect to work. So, I had to go up and just do it manually via the site manager. But play around with it, see what you can get to work. That's fine. The key is that you just need to be able to log into the Metasploitable 2 system so you can send across a really simple hello world file using FTP. And once you've done that, you go back to your Kali Linux system. You can stop packet capture. So if I click this, you'll see that, it's actually looking for traffic. Obviously, there's not a lot going on right now. But if I do Control-C, it's going to stop that. And so, you want both of these running while you get everything set up. And then, after you've sent the file, you come back here and you hit Control-C. I didn't get Wireshark running right now because I wasn't going to, show you all the little bits and pieces for how to do this lab. But, if Wireshark was running, it would capture all this information in Wireshark. And you'd also go back into Wireshark and you'd, hit the stop button, which will be right here when Wireshark is running. To stop your Wireshark capture. And that's it. Then just, do the rest of the questions. We're just asking for, a screenshot, showing some of the FTP data. We want you to show us the screenshot. It would tell you what the username and password is. You'll see that plain as day in Wireshark. And then think a little bit about what packets that you see in Wireshark that might give away the fact that there's an ARP poisoning attack going on. Obviously really useful information to be able to detect that, but give some thought to look at some of those packets that you captured and see if anything might clued you into the fact that there was an ARP poisoning attack going on. Again, this lab's a little bit more complicated, hence, there's 2 weeks to do it, but, please do not wait to the last minute, particularly with the Wireshark stuff. There's going to be a learning curve for you as you learn to filter the Wireshark data, look at it, and just not have your mind blown, because Wireshark does that. I mean, there's a lot of data there. And please contact me if you have any questions. I don't want you to bang your head against the wall for too long, but I do want you to try to figure some of this stuff out on your own, because A, it's an important skill to do that independent research, and B, because I am 100% confident you can do it. And yeah, have fun with this. This is a cool lab. And again, when you've completed it, you will have successfully established your computer is an eavesdropping location, a man in the middle between two different computers and communications, and you'll see captured credentials, just like if you were hacking the live network. So have fun, and please, yeah, of course, contact me with any questions.
This tutorial was prepared by the Center for Cybersecurity and Privacy Protection at Cleveland Marshall College of Law, Cleveland State University.